This is Laszlo Horvath, who migrated from Budapest to London.
Were you born in Hungary?
Yes.
For a start. Okay, good. How old were you when you left Hungary?
7.
What was life, because Hungary was a communist state at the time?
Yes.
Was like how drastically was life different from communist Hungary to what would say be?
The thing is that when you're a little child, then you don't know about the politics, you don't know about the lack of freedoms and so on. You hear people, I'll tell you what I did hear. Occasionally when people, adults that is, started to talk about the system, as it were, there was a thing, shh, 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 as in the walls of ears. So there's definitely, you can tell, you could not speak your mind. And people were afraid that somebody might be listening and that whoever's listening is going to denounce you and you get yourself into an awful lot of trouble. That was what I remember.
The Hungarian uprising was quite a major event.
Yes.
In the...
Well, that's why I'm here, because my father had to leave. He couldn't stay when the Russians moved in, he had to leave. And so that's why eventually the rest of the family came over here. But not for 5.5 years, because they wouldn't let us out, because he left illegally.
Have your family always lived in Hungary, or you were quite on the move around in Europe?
Well, the borders of Europe moved a lot.
That's true.
And so one day you might be living in Hungary, another day you're in the same place, but you're now in, I don't know, Czechoslovakia or part of Hungary, or you're in Serbia, or you're in Germany, or you're in... Yeah, I mean, a lot of people who were in not too far from where we lived were all German, and they only spoke German, yet they were technically in Hungary at that time. So there was a big mix, and a lot of people moved for all sorts of reasons, population migration, and my grandparents on my mother's side moved from somewhere, I don't know where, persecution, to Hungary. There was some kind of persecution and it was unsafe for them to say where they were.
Well, now the revolution was obviously quite a momentous occasion in Hungarian society, and did you probably noticed while you were living there, but when you came to England, maybe with the Hungarian community, was how big an impact?
I think that the revolution itself was put down brutally, but the biggest impact was communism, that a country which had been liberal, Western looking, was all of a sudden squashed and became a satellite for, or a buffer state for Russia. And communism is not something that comes readily to a society which had been free. There was a kind of feeling, I think, that under the communist regime, that if you were accused of something, you were guilty until you proved yourself innocent, which is kind of the opposite way around to what we have here. And that's what happened to my father. He was accused. I don't know exactly. He was accused of being a German collaborator, which he wasn't, because he was just a soldier in the Hungarian army. But he had to prove all of that. And whilst he was trying to prove all that up to that time, you could see that he was being shunned by all sorts of people, apart from true friends. I'll tell you something which did happen to an uncle. Now, this person was an engineer. That means he made things, proper engineer. And one day, there was a knock on the door, the proverbial middle of the night knock. They opened up, and the secret police came in and dragged off his mother. And she was never seen again. A card came some years later to say, from somebody who was in the next bed to hers, to say she died in this bed next to me. Now, beyond that, there was this thing that this engineer never progressed in his job after that. He never got promotion. So he was a marked man. Now, why his mother, a peasant woman, was taken away, who knows? All we can think of is that somebody was jealous and, she was accused of something. But that's the kind of thing that did happen. It's not really not understanding, it's not having justice, if you like, that you have very largely you have in this country. And you here, if you wish, you can appeal to the media, you can tell your story. You can't do that, you couldn't do that. Because all of that was controlled by the state and censored. All the letters that went back and forth between my parents, whilst we were in Hungary and my father was in England, were opened and content checked. So, and when we came out, at the airport, my brother, my mother and myself, we had all our baggage thrown onto the floor, and everything emptied out, and items we've gone through, you can take that, you can't take that, you can't, for no reason. Just said you can or you can't. And loads of stuff, bedding, for goodness sake. No, you can't take that. You're taking it to the West to sell. My father came to England because he could speak some English, although he spoke German fluently because of relatives. His grandmother was German, he could only speak German. But he thought that he wanted to be further away from the war area, Second World War area, and always looked to England as a liberal country. They came here, and a lot of Hungarians who came here were given some money and packed off to America. But he had a young family that he left behind, and he didn't want to go that far away, so he started to work in England and didn't make a new home. So we went straight to...
But if you go back now, are you going back recently? Or only when you were a child?
No, I've been back. I went back when? A couple of years, a year and a half, something like that, ago. It's part of Europe. Loads of immigrants all over the place. But it's a country that is struggling to find its feet. I mean, one of the things that was done by the Russians is that they destroyed the diverse industry that existed in Hungary and all the other satellite states, and they said, right, Hungary, you make light bulbs and you make buses, and the Czechs, you make cars, So if you suddenly you've got yourself a sort of free country, and you've got very little industry, you haven't got the diversity you need. So that's what's happened is that a small percentage of people have become very rich, and the bulk of the people in the country are poorer than they were under communism.